is this? What the hell?
Welcome to the Domination League.
We doing the draft?
No, we're not doing a draft. It's a league meeting.
Jesus, Spazinelli, we told you it's obviously not the draft. We don't have gerbils or hot sauce.
Fine.
We have nothing.
I mean, we don't have anything.
We should use our deeper
Yeah,
voices.
use the deep voices, guys.
I think the deep voices are only when we have the masks on.
Well, we didn't. No one clarified
No
it
one
before.
the masks are
exactly how we were gonna do it.
You're Dirty Randy.
Yeah.
Wait, Russell?
Yes, it's me. No, it's a porcelain murder doll.
You guys, I'm not in the Domination League. Okay?
But you are in the Domination League.
The only way to get out of this league is to die or be killed. Bow! Blow! Bow! Blah, 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 blah.
You can never leave. It's like the Hotel California.
Exactly.
But with more teeth and pus.
Wasn't the Hotel California kind of a sad, pussy place?
Okay, it's exactly like the Hotel California.
Only less douchey Don Henley bullshit.
Do not insult Don Henley.
You guys need to get your act together, and until you do, I'm not gonna be in this
going
league.
anywhere.
You're not going anywhere, pretty boy. You're not going anywhere, pretty boy.
You just checked in to the hotel.
Spaz, we've moved on.
You're
Oh,
about, Spaz. What is wrong with you? Everybody shut up! Ruxin, you need to be punished for shunning the Domination League. Prepare to be hunted.
And then we're gonna skin you and wear you like a coat.
Chill out, Spaz.
Spazinelli, calm down. These are just paintballs.
I'm so confused. Are we actually gonna kill him or not?
No, we're not gonna kill anybody.
Is that a trident made of dildos?
I do not know what a trident is, but these are dildos.
Hey, Ruxin. Run, rabbit. Run.
God, Robbie, please, please.
We have reached the middle point of the season, and yet the league has gone full circle. My dad and the Bard are battling for relevance at the bottom. Johnny Fantasy, the Doc, and Sexy Boy are at the top. 2013 is on repeat. All we need is for MB2 to lose interest again and to be swapped back with Gibbles. At least some things never change. The coin is batting point 5. Handsome Andy is underperforming. Father Tex is overperforming. Big Papa Pump remains irrelevant. And the Hogfather can't help but be smug. The only question that remains: will Too Good Tyson finally live up to his name, or will his downward trend adopt questionable right-wing views and not move to Melbourne? Only time will tell. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thank you. Brilliant as always. Daphne.
Nation of the league status. It is 2013 all over again.
All right. Hope everyone enjoyed that somewhat drawn out introduction. Welcome. As is tradition, I am taking over hosting duties for this show. Traditionally the biggest show of the year. Everyone loves the mid-season power rankings. Cheers, CK. So yeah, this is a tradition that's been going on for kind of as long as we've been doing league punditry. I don't know exactly when we started doing mid-season power rankings, but probably a fair way back, at least a decade. So yeah, we've obviously the format has evolved a little bit. So we're going to have a bit of a mixture of a blend, if you will, of AI-driven insights as well as good old-fashioned journalistic commentary. And so Kingmaker will be joining me to provide color commentary. You'll be the John Madden to my Al Michaels, the Tony Romo to my whoever that guy that Tony Romo commentates with. So yeah, welcome.
I'm pleased to be here. Well, not really. you know, this isn't even going to well for me. It's much better when you're on top. And look, you know, I have a rule. I don't know. I was thinking to say I'm in a number of other leagues, and I really consider those leagues really to be just for me to give practice for drafting before I get to our real draft. And I actually like dominating a lot of those other leagues, and I still struggle to find that I care about them because I am doing so poorly in this one, which is the one that matters to my heart.
Indeed. Well, the good news with the power rankings is that we're going to go from worst to first. So we're probably not giving anything away. Probably going to rip the Band-Aid off pretty early on in the show, talking about your team and mine, and then we can move on.
I didn't rank myself as bottom.
No, that's true. You didn't. It's very optimistic. All right, so let's crack into it, and I'll talk a little bit about how this.
Would you want to explain how the rankings have been determined?
Yeah. So we've got. So I've done a power ranking of all 12 teams, as has the Kingmaker, and we've also had Skynet do the rankings. Was it the Fantasy Pros, or where did that come
from? Yeah, the Fantasy Pros one. Yep.
So I've then aggregated all 3 sets of rankings, and we've got the master list of rankings, and that's the order that we're going to go through. And we will kick it off. And for the first one, I'll explain what we've got. We've got the screen, right? So first one up is Stu. So the 3 rankings are here. So in the Green Bay colors here is the ranking that I gave. In the Miami colors is Kingmaker's ranking, and then the black and white is the AI ranking. Obviously, we're going to have the current rosters as of today. The charts are like points per game over the first 7 weeks, and then orange being the average. And then, we'll go, obviously record and grades and a bit of commentary. And then the orange text down here is playoff odds according to Fantasy Pro and championship odds. So, that's where we're going to start it off with Stu's team. So, Fantasy Pros does not give him a hope in hell of either making the playoffs or the championship. He is sitting at 4-10, but with an average 95.6 points per game, which is worst in the league through the first 7 weeks.
I would just like to say, I think the reason why it gives a less than 1% chance and not a 0% chance is because I guess theoretically the other 11 coaches could quit the league.
That is, I mean, I'm not actually sure that would be enough, to be honest. I mean, they could like remove their team from the league somehow. That might be the thing that happens.
Just drop all their players for like guys that aren't playing. Yeah.
So okay. So draft grade was a D. Some of this was not Stu's fault. Like in particular the Christian McCaffrey thing, which obviously caught fantasy players everywhere off guard. But
however, on that, like it's never recommended to draft injured guys, particularly running backs. And I know San Francisco were being a bit coy about the actual status, but I wouldn't have drafted, and like what the fuck do I know? But I wouldn't have drafted him in a single league. And there were leagues where I had an opportunity to. And to me, the risk was not worth the reward.
Agreed. He had Dak Prescott in the second round, who's been really poor, as Cowboys fans are painfully aware of. And he went A-Chain in the third. He did get off to a good start, but I think like most of the Dolphins' offense, he's fallen off pretty badly since the Tua concussion. So maybe he can get it back on track. Maybe he can't. But like beyond that, there wasn't really a lot of good value pickups in this draft. It was a pretty poor showing. Roster depth, I've given him a C. It's okay. It's not the best, not the worst. One new thing I'm doing this year as well is a vibes grade. This is just my personal view on the individual, and do I like the vibes that they're bringing to the league this year in terms of the general energy and interaction and stuff. It has no impact on the power ranking, but I gave Stu a B-. Look, everyone knows like Stu is like the nicest guy in person. When you get him behind a keyboard, he does turn into a bit of a boomer, but in a kind of charming, endearing way. He definitely isn't watching this because he still can't work out how to follow the YouTube link. But like I gave it a solid B- for Stu. He's always fun to have around. Strengths of this team. Look, if McCaffrey comes back, then the thing's going to look up for sure, right? But he would need to come back and be just absolutely amazing in order to like substantially turn around the fortunes of this team. So I think probably deservedly currently sitting as favourite for the Ringo.
I think the one thing that you haven't mentioned that certainly should be mentioned is it didn't have to be this way. Stu, of course, had the ultimate faith in our Australian Olympic team, had by far the best prediction for their medal tally. Everyone else thought it was crazy. They did the best performance they've ever done, and he had the choice of picks. He could be sitting here with Lamar Jackson, the number one quarterback overall, if he'd been happy to take the first pick, which was available to him. So I think it all started there. And he obviously took pick 4, thinking he would pick McCaffrey, and this would be a road to victory. But the road could have been very different.
Do you not think he would have found a way to blow up the first pick as well?
I don't think Stu has ever used a first pick well in his entire time in the history of the league. So no, I think he would also blow that one up.
All right.
He would pick Mahomes.
Actually, that's a good point. I mean, that wouldn't have been a disaster, but it would have been like, he probably would have been sitting down here going, "Oh, what was me? Maybe I can sell Mahomes to Johnny Fantasy in some wild, unhinged deal." Okay, moving on. So I will say in regards to this one, like 11 and 10, which spoiler alert, is your team and mine. Like the aggregated rank is the same, right? So it's kind of a dead heat.
Yeah.
I put yours at 11 just because you're below me on the ladder, but there's
That's fair.
There's stuffing in it, right? So we're going to start by talking about.
I voted myself higher than you for one simple reason. I managed to beat you.
Yeah, I also voted you higher than me. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice.
But Skynet put you dead last, mate. So
fuck you, Skynet.
Yeah, and I think just because of the trade, I think there's a little bit more cause for optimism. I think your team probably has a higher ceiling than mine, but we won't talk about mine yet, right? So, draft, I've gone a C+. Chase Brown in the 7th had a bit of a slow start, but he's starting to hit his straps down, putting up some pretty solid numbers. James Conner in the 6th round is like a borderline RB1, so that's pretty good. The QBs that you drafted have been absolutely abominable, though. Led by the aforementioned. Actually, you didn't draft Mahomes. You drafted Trevor Lawrence and Richardson.
Yep.
Yeah, not good. And the wide receivers, I won't sort of ding you for that because the guys that you drafted have either gotten injured or been impacted by other injuries. The very high profile one, of course, being Tyreek Hill. So I think probably more bad luck than bad drafting, which is why I've probably bumped it up to a C+ rather than a C. I didn't even talk about team management with Stu. I completely forgot about it. Anyway, it would have been a short conversation. He's done nothing.
Has he made any moves? Has he spent any fab?
No.
Does he know how fab works?
He may not. He's fiddling while Ryan burns. Team management for you is a C. You have you've gone back to your old ways. It has to be said. Spent $27 on Quentin Johnson, who's done nothing. $61 on Andy Dalton, who was bad and is now in a car accident.
He was good some weeks.
He was good the week before you picked him up.
I'm pretty sure I played him in the week I beat you.
Congratulations. And then like the piece to resistance, like $89 on Dontavian Wicks, who has been the absolute definition of feast or famine. More famine than feast.
He's not on the squad anymore. Just a great comment here from Johnny Smug. Stu forgot about team management too.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So on the plus side for you, you've made a spicy trade, and like I'll talk more about the trade later on. But also you got Mike Andrews for free, and he's been great ever since you got him. So good job by you.
I'm anything but inactive, even when
absolutely. Vibes always an A. Like obviously bringing the good energy to this show, and always keeping the chat rolling and keeping it spicy. So always good vibes from the Kingmaker. I think strengths going forward, like the running back situation is pretty solid, and I think you've shown that you're willing to take a gamble on some trades in order to save the season. The season might be beyond saving, but that remains to be seen. But I think you'll I think we haven't heard the last from the Kingmaker this season for one reason or another.
And look, the focus is not when this happens. You just got to stick to it and just hope you don't get the Ringo. Like that's my objective. But also, I'm in better spirits about it because 2 years ago I was equally shit, and I needed to sneak my way out of the Ringo at the last minute. And then I was doing these videos and stopped because I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Whereas this year, I'm continuing to bring the fun, even though my team's performing so poorly. And maybe it's because you're here with me. Like we're just down at the bottom together, and that's the shared trauma.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. So
look at you with the playoff odds. It's not over.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, for whatever reason, despite the fact that we have the same record and probably a very similar outlook, for some reason Skynet gives me 4% chance to make the playoffs. I think when I inevitably lose to Stu this week, that's probably down to 0. So yeah, 3-11 with a pretty healthy, like 111 points per game. If you look at this graph over here, it is like the most like solid, dependable team in the league. It's just 110 points every fucking week, which is fantastic. And it unfortunately it's just not enough to win. So draft grade was a C. So I went heavy on QB. I went Stroud and Brock Purdy with first and the third. Both have been okay. I think Purdy's got some concerns ahead with all the injuries around him on that team. The running backs that I drafted, the current and former Green Bay running backs, have both been pretty reliable contributors. Wide receiver and tight end has been an absolute shit show. Like I have had no consistency from any of the guys that I drafted. I've just been chasing big scores all year and never getting them when it actually counts. So that's been an absolute boondoggle. So C grade for draft. Team management C-. I got I have both the number 6 and number 7 ranked defenses and got them for free, whilst other people are weirdly paying for defenses. I don't know why. I also have the number 2 kicker in fantasy, which I also got for free. So that's a feather in the cap. Other than that, though, I've done absolutely nothing effective with the large amounts of fab that I've spent. I've flushed away a combined $125 on Isaiah Likely and Darnell Mooney, both of whom have been absolute trash.
I drafted Darnell Mooney.
You did, yeah.
And sharing the love down here.
Roster depth, C-. It's like I've got like 4 or 5 guys that you could just plug in on any given week and just cross your fingers and hope for the best. Vibes, obviously, top marks, A++. I'm the most beloved commissioner in league history.
I think maybe Dan's above you.
Okay, I'll take second place to Dan. But yeah, like, so this, I think there's like, despite the fact that our teams are ranked side by side, I think yours has a lot more variance going forward, as in the floor is lower and the ceiling is higher. My team has an identical floor and ceiling. It's just going to be the same mediocre score every week. And we're just going to limp our way into the postseason and hope that our 110 points is good enough to win in week 16 or 17.
Yeah, look, I think you've been a bit unlucky. Like Stroud, you had to expect better things, and I think most people would have. And yeah, maybe that's it. Look, the team is what you say. They're just everyone's sort of like just a guy, but they're all solid, but no one's got a high ceiling, and that's what's hurting you. But I can't see. Like the thing was, when you were drafting, I thought you were drafting really well, but I guess that's the kiss of death.
It's like there's been some luck to it. I'm not going to like harp on it, right? But I've had the equivalent of a Carter factor score against me every single week on average. So that's
Jared has trademarked complaining about people scoring against him.
I know, but like I hate to bring up like actual numbers, but I am by far the unluckiest when it comes to opposition score. But yeah, like that is you just gotta roll with that. So yeah, it's gonna be a pretty tough run home, and the door is always open. The phone is always on the hook for trade offers, unless it's Jono. Don't bother, because every trade offer you ever made has been completely insulting.
I don't think it's when Jono makes an insulting trade, or he just drops into your DMs like he did with me a week ago and just said, "Would you trade James Conner?" Like, not even putting like an offer to me. Like, it's like, why? What am I trading him for? Like, it's like the 1.5 decent player I've got gives me a big score. What? Like, you've got to give. Like, what is the opportunity? What is the proposal? Yes, I'll trade anyone for the right price, but just don't drop in and like fish for my players, please.
All right, number 9, Matt Brown. So ranked 9th by yourself and I. Got a little bump from the from Skynet. Skynet ranks him 7th, but yeah, he comes in number 9 on this list. Pretty up and down scores week to week, as you can see from the graph. I actually gave him a pretty good grade for the draft. I gave him a B, right? So obviously, like Lamar with the 5th overall pick, you're going to be really happy with that. He's the number 1 player in fantasy currently.
I think he's not only the number 1 player in fantasy and the number 1 quarterback, but he's like the 8th or 7th highest rusher as well.
That's crazy, yeah. He also he backed it up with Saquon D's Nuts Barkley in the 2nd round, who's been absolutely amazing. So yeah, he really nailed the top end of the draft. Got some really good deeper picks too. He went Terry McLaurin in the 7th round, who's currently sitting sort of just outside wide receiver 1 range, and he'd also be really happy with Bo Nix, who he got in the 10th, who's putting together a pretty solid run of form. He drafted Nick Chubb in the 9th, and obviously was prepared to absorb like that multi-week absence. Obviously, Chubb just came back and looked pretty good in the return, and he'll be hoping that the Browns' offense can kind of turn things around now that they've got the wild man, Jameis Winston, under center. So I think it was a good draft from MB2. Team management, I also thought he's done pretty well. He's actually been really involved. Lots of player movement.
Lots of comments in the chat.
Yeah.
Memes.
He got Alan Lazard really early on for $18, who's currently the world wide receiver 12 on the season. He's actually I think he's sort of battling injury this week, but in general he's been really good with Rodgers. So yeah, he's done well there. Roster depth is a C. It's okay, not great, not terrible.
Well, actually, the roster depth is what I marked him down on. I feel the depth is really worrying, and if he were to lose a Barkley, or Lamar, that's pretty much season over for me. Which is what I know you can put in Knicks, but I feel like the team is only good from those guys, and that one big hit and it's over.
I think if anybody loses Lamar Jackson, the season's probably in dire straits, right? I do agree. It doesn't have a lot of great options at running back, but I think plugging in, like if you had to plug in, but when I think about roster depth, I'm more thinking about covering bye weeks, right? So you can do a lot worse than plugging in Bo Nix at quarterback on a bye week. Vibes C+, yeah, like he's always good for it.
You're undervaluing him there. I think he's been putting in more of an effort in the chat this year.
Sure.
It's actually, to be fair, it's quietened down. First 3 or 4 weeks, he was on his best behavior and trying to really be active, and it sort of slowed down in recent weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, I think so the AR gives him a 56% chance of making the playoffs, so he's right there on the bubble. Obviously sitting at 500 at the moment, and a 7% chance of winning the championship. So he would be a bit of an outsider there, but it is definitely possible for him. Any further thoughts before we turn the page on Matt Brown?
I'm happy. The one thing I would say is, despite everything you've said, Bart, over the last year, through the playoffs, pre-draft, at the draft, Matt Brown, if you make the Ringo Ball and Bart and I are there, feel free just to check out of the whole thing once again. I'm perfectly fine with you doing that for another occasion. It's not self-serving. Just do you, Boo. You do you.
All right, coming at number 8, Handsome Andy. So this is a guy that you and I rated reasonably highly. The AI not quite so enamored of his team, putting him down at 9th. So again, I gave Andy a pretty good score for the draft. He went Bijan Robinson and Joe Burrow in the first 2 rounds, and both of those are working out just fine. Justin Herbert in the 3rd is not lighting the world on fire, unfortunately for him, but he's more than made up for it with an unbelievable homer pick in the 5th round of Alvin Kamara, who has just been unbelievable. This team, like we'll talk about a little bit more, this team is heavily invested in the Saints offense. Not a surprise if you know the guy. And that offense has been struggling a little bit. So that's probably going to be a bit of a determining factor going forward as to whether it's any good. Team management, I have given him a C-. He has spent 0 fab, which I really don't like at this point in the season. Like the best value fab that you're going to get generally is in the first half of the season. So you can't take it with you when you're gone, as they say. He did get the number 3 defense in fantasy for free, which is Green Bay, who's been lighting it up. But other than that, he's not done a lot. Yeah, so vibes, B-. You know, he pops in every now and then, and always appreciate his input. I think everyone loves Handsome Andy. He's got no enemies in the league.
I'd say, from my point of view, I think what you haven't commented on is when and where I see improvement for this team. Firstly, I think Olave can only get better. Obviously, probably needs Derek Carr back in, and Derek Carr wasn't targeting him a lot, but Derek, they've got time to work on that, and Olave improving the second half of the season would not be an unrealistic storyline that you see throughout the year. He's just got Hawkinson back, I think might be coming off IR very, very shortly. He really lacks in that wide end, we'll call it wide end. It's the wide receiver tight end spot. I'm going to call it the wide end. It wasn't a mistake. The wide end spot, he really lacks there. So TJ Hawkinson coming into that position in a very strong offense, I think, has the potential to really start pushing him up the scores. That's what I was looking at, how this team can get better. And I think the one of the better picks he made in the draft was Brian Robinson, who I was very, very keen to draft. He sniped him, I think, right before me. I had big hopes that he would be good with playing with a very mobile quarterback in Daniels, and I think that's really come out to quite a good outcome for Andy. I meant to mention this when we're talking about NP2. Sorry to go back a slide, but you missed his amazing pickup of $110 fab player for $8 in Pittman.
Thank you, Chris. Let me know next time you're going to the cinema so I can text you again.
But I know that Pittman scored about nothing more than 8 since that happened. I'd like to know.
All right. Coming in at number 7, Too Good Tyson. I ranked him 8th. You and Skynet have both put him in, just sneaking into the top half at number 6. So draft, I thought his draft was pretty good. I gave him a B+. He went Kyler Murray in the first round, who's been mostly pretty good. AJ Brown was his second round pick. He has missed time through injury, but he's been unbelievable when he's been out there. He's scored 17 plus points in every game that he's played. Etienne and Collins were traveling okay, but kind of been hampered by injury, and I'm not sure Etienne has really got the number 1 job pinned down anymore. But the big highlight there is Kyren Williams in the 4th round, currently the number 2 running back in fantasy. So he really nailed that one. I don't know why you got your head in your hands over that.
Do you not remember the draft occasion? Maybe people don't remember their own stuff that happens at the draft. But I had a choice of a pick, which was between, and Kyren Williams on, if you have your sheet where you're crossing off names, had really fallen in terms of lots of names below him had been crossed out while he remained. No matter what sort of form or pro forma you were using, that was the case. And it came to my pick, and I obviously had to take a running back there. I already had Tyreek and I may have even had Trevor Lawrence at that point, so definitely need to get in a running back. and my choices were Kyron Williams and Joe Mixon. And honestly, neither of those choices would have been. I chose Mixon, and that hasn't been bad because Mixon's obviously been, when he's played, been elite. And so it wasn't a bad pick, but Kyron Williams has played every game, has scored a touchdown in 10 consecutive games. And if I had him on my roster instead of Mixon who got injured, my season might have gone a bit differently with just having that constant player to help my scores through some of those tougher weeks.
Sliding doors.
But Tyson gave me a lot of shit for picking Mixon instead of Williams at the time. A lot of shit.
All right, we're about to give him some shit. So I try to give out at least one F grade every year in this, and I didn't manage it this year, but boy, I was so close. I really wanted to give Tyson an F for team management here. He has done his absolute best to take a good draft and just completely set it on fire. The only reason that he's not getting an F here is that he does have the Broncos, the number 2 ranked defense that he got for free. But outside of that, this has been a cavalcade of incompetent team management. So he dropped Drake May shortly before he took the starting job, a starting job that I think we all knew he was inevitably going to take, by the way.
And going to get around that time. I believe the discussion at the draft was Brissett starts for 4 or 5 weeks. So they got a tough schedule to begin the year. And then Drake May comes in. That was about 4 or 5 weeks when he dropped in.
Yeah. And so, yeah, obviously Drake May immediately started putting up good QB numbers at that point. And since then, it seems that Tyson has basically given up on trying to roster a second QB in our super flex league. So I don't know what his plan is long term, but he does not have a second quarterback on his roster. He seems to be focused on different things, such as bidding $85 on Jets running back Braylon Allen, who is averaging somewhere around 4 carries per game in the last month. So I do not know if that was a typo or if he was acting on bad information. But yeah,
he got sucked in to your and MB2's little battle about it, and the little battle you were having in the chat about, because MB2, why can't I pick him up? And you're like, I'm going to put $100 on him, and MB2 was going on about how much he wanted him. Like, he got sucked in by that. He got tricked.
Did he? He's a smart guy. I don't think he would have got sucked in by us. So despite all this, he is a 56% chance to make the playoffs. He's sitting on a pretty good 8-6 record and a 4% chance to win the championship. It's really hard to imagine him going all the way with one quarterback, and I don't really know what he's planning on doing about that at this point. I'd love to know, but yeah, I just don't know. Roster depth B-. Like the guys that he's got on the bench are not bad, right? He could do a lot worse than some of these blokes. Vibes though, I've got a D. We've hardly heard from this guy this year.
Yeah.
He's been a bit of a a in the league. So
what's the deal? Is he still in the other league? Does he still make the videos for the other league?
I don't know. I don't. He doesn't really come into the office. So I don't see him at work. But next time I do, I will ask him, "What's up?
What's up with that?
Why are you being like this?" So yeah, like he's got really good like big hitters on the roster. Right? Don't get me wrong. This guy can put up scores and has done. If you look at the graph over there, right? But yeah, like it's so glaringly obvious that he is going to struggle to compete in the playoffs unless he fixes this quarterback situation. So maybe trade talks coming soon.
I don't know if he's ever done a trade in the league.
I feel like he has. Yeah.
Maybe fact check that one.
Okay. All right.
Can someone make a bot for us that does that, like the Twitter bot that like says this isn't true? It'd be great if there's a little bot that could just go through all the league history and answer those questions.
Viewers added context to this comment. The bard has completely made up this fact. No, I feel like he did a trade with a coin at some point. Someone let me know.
Maybe.
All right.
That's what you're about.
All right, rounding into the top half of the rankings, we got Tex. I've put him at 6. You've panned him, mate. You've put him down at 8. And the AI likes him. He's in at 5 for Skynet. Yeah, good draft from Tex. I thought he had the #1 overall pick, probably quite to his surprise. I don't think he would have expected to have it going in, so he probably wasn't planning on walking away with Josh Allen. But nonetheless, he's got his guy, and it's, Allen's had a couple of bad games, but it's mostly been pretty good. Jonathan Taylor, he took in the second. It would have been the back of the second. Really good start to the season. He's missed a few games through injury, which I think has caused Tex a little bit of stress. But I think he's set to return very soon, if not this week. Very similar story with Ken Walker. He's also been good when he's been out there, but has missed some time through injury. Tex went Jared Goff in that second, third round turn. I think that's worked out pretty well too. And of course, as seen in the top right, he went 13th round, the fantasy MVP, Brandon Aubrey, who cannot miss from 50 plus yards.
He really has handed it has passed from Tucker to Aubrey as to great kickers.
Tex did invest a few draft picks in parts of the Ravens passing offense, which I think he's obviously regretted since. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but overall, I thought it was a pretty decent draft from old mate. Team management, look, it's been a bit of a strange journey, I have to say. He spent like $20 on Jameis Winston back in September, possibly on some suspicion that there was like further legal troubles coming for Deshaun Watson. It was a bit of a speculative pickup. He didn't hold on to him. Obviously, he now probably wishes that he had. But like, with the benefit of hindsight, Tex, he did go on to make what I think might end up being one of the worst player transactions of the year. So in the one transaction, he spent $73 on Trey Sermon, when I suppose it must have looked like the Jonathan Taylor injury was going to be a longer term one.
He did play Trey Sermon for 1 week for an okay score, I think, in that defense. But yes, a lot of money.
And in that same transaction, he also dropped Mark Andrews, who, in like Michael Jordan meme style, he took that personally and immediately started putting up elite tight end 1 numbers. So,
I believe he also hate dropped Zay Flowers the same week.
I don't think Zay Flowers has hit him back quite as hard, but the Mark Andrews thing, it would be incredibly painful to watch for Tex. In the past week, he's thrown darts at every available Tampa receiver. I guess we'll see what hits. But yeah, overall, it's been a bit of a weird one in terms of team management. Roster depth, also not that exciting. But vibes, I've given him a really good mark for vibes. I like what Tex is bringing this year. He's really leaned into the kind of grumpy, disgruntled, if I show up, it's going to be to like shoot some strays at somebody or clap back at somebody, and he's always on point with it. And I like what he's bringing to the table.
Yeah, he is bringing it. Look, I know he's all stressed out because he's trying to start a whole new religion, but it has brought about the grumpy priest vibes throughout the chat, which are good fun. And of course, we had the belt saga to start off the year, which I understand it has been located, so that's very fun. I have offered, because I know he's a very busy man, and I've had some time where I've been busy, but I've not been in the office, so I've got flex, and I have offered to collect the belt and drop it off to Kurt and then to Jono, and he has said no, he'll sort it out, and then doesn't look like he sorted it out. So Tex, just let me come and get the fucking belt and deliver it to somebody, please.
Don't let him come, Tex. It'll be funnier.
Did Jono win this week or lose this week? I'm really not that attuned.
I don't know. So yeah, I think he's been given again, like sort of 50-50 odds, just north of 50-50 to make the playoffs and 6% to win the championship. I think this team has a lot of room to get better, and obviously Cup's coming back, Jonathan Taylor's coming back. I think we could see this team start to trend up, possibly. So that's why I've ranked him pretty optimistically. Okay. Getting into the top 5, we got the Coin, who you and I both rate, and Skynet thinks is a complete mirage. It has him way down at 8. I think this is probably one of the biggest disagreements between the humans and the machines. So that'll be an interesting one to unpack. Again, I think he had a pretty good draft. He went Breece Hall and Jordan Love with the first 2 picks. Hall had a couple of bad games, but I mean, like, so did the entire Jets offense, which culminated in the sacking of the coach. And he's since kind of come surging back into form, which is good. Jordan Love has been fantastic. Shout out to Cheesehead Nation. He's leading the way. He had Puka in the 3rd round, who has been impacted by injury, obviously, so can't really hold that against James, but he came back really, really strong in the game on Friday. Devontae Adams with the 4th pick has been like really disappointing, and to be honest, I don't think the trade to the Jets is going to be the thing to turn that around. I think that Devontae might just be washed.
I disagree with that. I think it's 1 week, and I think that they had a bad week generally, the Jets. So I think that better times are ahead. And really, he's a 3rd receiver now that Cup. I'm getting confused because you didn't update the strengths here from the previous slide. But the Cup, the Puka inclusion with Neighbors and Adams as Adams is your 3rd guy. Like, it might not be how you drafted, but that's a strong receiving core. That's why I think this team's got a lot of potential.
Yep. The return of Cup and Taylor will not affect James Nunn's team. So strengths, wins every second week. Weaknesses, loses every second week.
Okay. That was the joke. Oh man, you lost a good joke.
I know. I did this whole thing this afternoon, so I was in a bit of a rush. He got some good mid-round value in the draft, like Malik Neighbors in the 6th. He's had some injury trouble, but he's been a game winner when he's been out there. And he also got George Kittle in the 7th, who's been the number 1 tight end in fantasy. So it's pretty good. Team management, I gave him a C. He did take the cheese on Juwan Jennings to the tune of $54. He did have a couple of good games, but he has been hit with injury. I think when he comes back, he's essentially going to be quite good, right? He's not going to have a lot of competition for targets in that offense. So I think that might turn out to be a pretty good pick down the stretch. Nothing to report really other than that one. He's been pretty quiet on the acquisitions. Vibes, I've given him a solid C, which is the closest I can get to 500. He doesn't show up very often.
No. He does watch live, and the only look, to his credit, he watches the show live, but not often, because we actually have a additional viewer for this. James's wife loves watching the show, and she gets annoyed with him if he and her watch if he starts watching the show when she's helping put one of the kids to bed. She gets annoyed if he started the show. So he can't often watch live, but they are loyal viewers.
Shout out to Mrs. Coyne, and in fact to any other wags who might be watching. And I promise we have never and will never rank you in this show.
Too controversial.
All right. Did I remember to do the comments for this one? Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Number 4, the Hug Father. I rated Kurt's team second, and I'll talk about why I think it's really good. You and the AI had him a little bit lower down. I think Kurt's draft, frustratingly, maddeningly, was really fucking good, and it gives me the shits to say so. He infamously went receiver heavy on draft night. Took Lamb, Chase, Wilson, and Laporta off the top. Very mixed results there. I think like Chase has been elite. CeeDee Lamb and Wilson have been pretty good. Laporta somehow still 96% rostered on Sleeper, despite being like completely unstartable this year. So people are really hanging on to that sunk cost there. But he needs to be cut. But the whole narrative on draft night was always going to struggle at QB, and of course he's had the last laugh famously with that, because he's picked up Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold essentially for free, and they've gone on to be elite fantasy QBs. So he has shoved that directly down our collective gullets, and rightly so. It does have to be said, look, Baker's lost literally all his receivers in the past week, so maybe watch this space, but I think that he's probably still going to be okay. Where Kurt has actually struggled, surprisingly, is running back. He has not been able to string together a lot of consistent production there. But yeah, he's absolutely teabagged the league with this zero quarterback strategy, so we have to give him credit for that. Team management, fuck, this hurts. He's actually done a really good job with this as well. Like an early $32 on Tank Bigsby, who's had some really good weeks and has kind of displaced Travis
Yep.
Etienne in that Jags backfield.
Might have the job by the end of the year.
Yeah. Similar story with Madison. He also spent about $30 on Alexander Madison, who's been a super solid like RB2 and has kind of unexpectedly taken that lead job in Vegas as well. $37 on Xavier Legette. That was dumb. Not that I can talk, but no one's perfect. And yeah, his $24 that he put on Jameis Winston is looking pretty good, I have to say. So yeah, he's traveling pretty well there.
There's a real Jameis Winston's been a real musical chairs. Tex had him a couple of times.
Yeah.
I had him a couple of times, and he's just landed on Kurt's team at the perfect moment when the music stopped. He was there, sitting in the chair with a guy that's perfect to bring in the event of a bye week, or just based on matchup, he could be equally better than Mayfield or Darnold, and he can basically play matchups with those three guys.
Yeah. So Winston's been passed around like a bong, I'd say, unless there's an injury or a trade. He's probably not getting passed around again. Kurt's not going to be dropping him.
Yeah.
Roster depth, as we talked about, it's really good. Vibes, I don't necessarily pick up what Kurt's putting down this year. I liked him better when he was leaning into the whole villain thing. I think he's a little bit all over the shop. You can tell he's trying to be nice, but some days he just really wants to dust off the smug father. So I think he just needs to pick a direction and go with it.
You can tell too much he's trying to hold back the smug. You might as well just let it go. Just let it go.
But yeah, I think, as I said, I rate this team really highly. I think he's got like almost uncapped upside from these receivers, and he's continuing to get amazing production from bargain bin quarterbacks. His running back situation isn't the best, but I hold very high hopes of this team. And the scoring, if you look at the graph, has been super consistent. He's been doing more than enough each week, and as a result, is sitting very comfortably in the top 4.
Look, yeah, well, you're not wrong about this. I think I just like the other 4 teams better. I think I've got this narrative in my head of what James Nunn could do. And frankly, this whole top 6 is, bar one person, a very depressing affair, because I don't want to see Tex go back to back. I don't need Kurt to win a 5th one. I don't need Jono to win another one, or Johnny Fantasy. And I certainly don't want James to win a damn championship before I do. So really, there's only one guy in this top 6 that I really want to win, and that's what I'm putting my hopes on.
I suspect it might be the next person we're about to talk about.
Gold Coast, baby, let's go! Gold Coast draft.
All right, the Dick Slinger. I'm definitely not sure about this nickname. It may be up for review still.
He has 2. If you notice from the opening grab, notwithstanding all the stuff I had my daughter say, I went with Sexy Boy in the opening one. So that's his G-rated nickname, and this is his MA 15+.
All right. So Jared's sitting in 3rd on the league, although points per game he's a little bit lower. He's down around about 6. But there's very little between like 6th and 2nd place in that points per game. There's almost nothing in it, so I wouldn't read too much into that. Jared's draft was really, really good. So good, in fact, that there was lots of speculation about whether he actually did it himself.
The asterisk will come if he wins this championship.
Especially given that these selections were coming from someone else's mouth in Jared's absence. But look,
not someone else, league champion, mind you.
Yeah. Full credit to Jared. Like he got Jameer Gibbs at the back of the 1st round, which is working out okay. He's currently the RB5. He also got Montgomery in the 6th. Perhaps as a bit of an insurance policy, but it's working out fantastically. Montgomery is currently the RB13, so that Lions offense is just an absolute gravy train for fantasy. And he's also obviously got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who he picked up in the 2nd, who's been mostly pretty good as well. Geno Smith was really good value in the 5th round. I think fantasy owners were sleeping on him a little bit going into this year. And Brock Bowers, fantastic late round pickup there. He's the number 2 tight end in fantasy through the first 7 weeks. Obviously, Tua in the third round hasn't worked out. Not Jared's fault. We got the whole injury thing, but he's on his way back, it seems.
I wouldn't believe it.
For better or worse. You don't believe it?
Either he comes back or he doesn't, but I can't see him not getting concussed again. It's just over.
Marvin Harrison.
Why get concussed again? Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, Marvin Harrison in the fourth round. He's had a few monster games, but just as many stinkers. So yeah, a mixed bag, but I think overall like a really good draft. And if you were to grade it on a curve, given some of Jared's previous efforts, this is a really, really good draft for him.
You also didn't mention Brian Thomas, who's been a fantastic rookie pickup. And what I would like, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like Jared did perhaps the most research he's ever done going into a draft for this one. The only other year he was reasonably competitive, not including the first year, was because a couple of fucking random dart throws just hit ridiculously. I think it was Deshaun Watson's first year or something like that, and he had him. But there's some crazy picks in there that came off. Brian Thomas was a strong sleeper that was being talked about. And if you're going into the data, if you're getting into the detail thing, like people were big on Neighbors, people were big on Marvin Harrison. There's the other one, right? But obviously he's gone a bit further. He's heard about Brian Thomas, knowing there was value there. There wasn't like a lot of talk about how good Bowers could be, but there was talk about how good Bowers could be because he's not just a standard tight end. He can be used in a lot of different gadget and utility plays. And the worry that that's how he was used in college, but he wasn't going to be used that way in the NFL. But in the preseason, they started doing things like that. So it was a really strong sleeper pick. And I just feel that, Jared was making very, very good picks and must have done the work, which you can't say he does every year.
Yep. So sitting in third, he's a 94% chance to make the playoffs, so almost certain, and 16% chance to win the championship, which is probably the strongest he's looked at mid-season in quite some time. So shout out to Jazz. I think he'll have a lot of people behind him.
Gold Coast draft,
spurring him on to success. All right, top two.
You didn't mention you skipped past team management, which I get trying to get through the show, but this can be a long show. The Drake May pickup, top notch.
Indeed.
He's paying attention. He needed another quarterback. Even if Tua goes badly, he's still got the Drake May to slot in. Or if something happens to Geno, who knows? But like he's drafted well and he's remained active. He's definitely much more of a high participation in all senses this year, and it's really positive.
Agreed. Good vibes. Turgo gave him B+ for vibes. I like that he's kind of downplaying it and just sort of hanging out in the background. I think he's done a good job of garnering support for himself without being too vocal about it. So he's pitched himself as the underdog perfectly. All right. Speaking of people who are not pitching themselves as the underdog, Dr. Evil currently sitting in second place in both record and scoring. Again, this is going to be quite painful to talk about because he had a really unbelievably good draft. So he went Jalen Hurts in the first round. He's underperformed a bit on what you'd expect, but certainly nothing to be too upset about. But he went the ballsy pick of Jaden Daniels in the second round, which is working out unbelievably. Obviously, they're going into the league. There were some durability questions around him because he's quite small for the position. That's certainly come to the forefront this week, which is the first week that he's kind of genuinely questionable to play with an injury. But
he's also reckless.
Yeah,
he goes head first. He doesn't slide all the time. That sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out. He went Isaiah Pacheco on the third. He started well, but obviously he's now on IR. Jono will be hoping that he can come back for the home stretch. And he went Drake London in the fourth, just unbelievable value. He's currently the fourth ranked wide receiver overall. He kept it going deeper into the draft too. DeAndre Swift in the seventh, who's on a cracking run of form at the minute. And Kyle Pitts, 10th round, who's finally coming good for all of his long-suffering fantasy investors and people that have believed in him and been bitterly disappointed for the last few years. He's actually putting together some really good games. And of course, the much discussed 12th round Jordan Mason pick up. Look, Jordan Mason's gone off the ball a bit after a hot start, but I think he's still a really solid high-end RB2, and will continue to be until the miraculous second coming of McCaffrey, whenever that might be. So a fantastic draft for Dr. Evil.
Did he draft Mason? I thought he picked him up late. What a good
No,
pick.
it was a 12th round draft pick. Yeah,
very impressive.
Team management.
Yeah, team management.
Team management.
Sorry.
Also really excellent. Yeah, he's made a lot of moves. Only a couple of them have been really impactful. He got Kareem Hunt in the aftermath of that Pacheco injury, and it was one of those. It wasn't really clear that Kareem Hunt was going to come in and take the job, but it was one of those rare cases where like the free agent guy comes in off the couch and just starts balling out immediately. So that's been just a straight like-for-like plug-in replacement, which is very, very hard to do when you have the highly drafted running back that goes out. And Russell Wilson for $11. Was this dumb luck, or was it just incredible fantasy management? I'm sure Jono has an answer to that, but yeah.
Did he do it? Did he do it before there was chatter, or was there chatter when it happened?
I think it was reasonably well known that Russell Wilson was going to take the job when Jono put that bid in when the waivers were up. However, everyone assumed that Russell Wilson was going to be terrible because he has been for years, and obviously small sample size so far, but he's played one pretty cracking game against supposedly a good Jets defense, and he carved them up. So
I believed that Wilson would be good. I did draft him originally, but I just felt it would be difficult to get the job back once Fields was actually performing and they were winning games. But I guess they've decided to try their options.
Yep. Roster depth is really good. He's got Brooks for Carolina, who's going to come back probably in the back half and start doing some stuff. And yeah, he's got a little bit of an embarrassment of riches sitting there on the bench. Vibes like a solid B. I don't mind what Jono's putting down this year. I think he's been like reasonably humble by his standards given the success that he's had. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think he's bringing the good energy.
Jono is generally humble, even when he's like up and about. It's just not in his wheelhouse to really like lay in the smug. It's just not really his style.
Yeah. All right, so we come now to the consensus number one from all sources. Johnny Fantasy, an eye-watering average of nearly 139 points per game.
Wow.
I don't think we've ever seen that at mid-season before, and obviously sitting comfortably atop the league at 12-2. Draft obviously really, really good. His bad draft pick was Mahomes. Obviously, he went second overall pick, and Mahomes, although he's been a pretty good real life quarterback, he's been objectively really bad in fantasy. And he's traded him away, and I think he probably had to give up some of the other good value he got in the draft in order to kind of offset the trade there. He went Justin Jefferson in the second round. That's worked out really well. He's currently the wide receiver too. And
huge value on there, and he really shouldn't have slipped as far as he did realistically.
Yeah. And then he backed it up with Derrick Henry, third round, currently the number 3 overall player in fantasy.
When we get to the season stat thing, you'll know that I was a strong supporter of Derrick Henry. I had strong belief. This team pissed me off. Like, just as a side note, I drove Carter to the draft, and even though I was like trying to win my AFL fantasy thing, which I did, I spent a lot of that month doing research. And we get in the car with him. He was also doing some fantasy AFL, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I haven't got a chance to really look at it. I looked at a couple of podcasts today. I've listened to a little bit, and yeah, I don't know how I'm going to go." And literally, I looked at his team, and I was salivating over it after the draft. I'm like, "This is the team that I wish I had." Fuck you for like doing no work and having this team.
Yeah. He kept it going into the sort of mid to late rounds. Stephon Diggs in the 7th round, who's currently putting up wide receiver 1 numbers for someone else's team. And Chuba Hubbard, 11th round, who's like a low end RB1, so that's amazing value. overall, really strong draft. As I said, he's had to give up some of that value to offset kind of whiffing on that first pick and try to fix his quarterback situation. I'm not sure. I think this week is going to start to give us some insight as to who actually won that trade. Right? It's been hard to tell up until now, but Tyreek Hill is probably set to return, and Tua is going to be back out there. They're up against like an absolutely hapless Cardinals defense. So this is going to be the game to prove that it was a good trade for Johnny Fantasy. Otherwise, he's just going to go back to praying that Richardson can turn it around. That's the only thing to discuss with team management, because it's basically all that he's done of any note.
It's an all or nothing trade. Like, it really could work out for him with Tariq, right? But he has lost as average as you say Mahomes has been. He'll always give you a half decent floor, and the ceiling is always there. So for me, it was about potentially building in that opportunity to succeed later in the year. For him, but having a floor, he's got a floor. He was then going for the ceiling, right? And the risk is having Fields having lost the job, now relying on Richardson because he has not been great, is a big punt to take. But I like that he was willing to take this big punt and to see if he could seal the season with this move. And you're right, if Tua comes back and doesn't get concussed again, which I'll be shocked if he doesn't, Tyreek could be a league winner. Mixon is good value, great value. Like, he's not lost a step there, and he's probably beat me on that. Parker Singletary appears to have lost the job a bit, but the Richardson jury's out, and this trade could bite him in the ass, or it could win him the league. Look, as much as I don't want him to win, I don't mind him winning another one. And I'm, Jared, Gold Coast, whoop whoop. I can of course if the Kingmaker if he wins this similar. So I'm happy either way. Give more Jared.
I've given Johnny Fantasy an A+ score for vibes. I absolutely love what he's bringing this year. He's a naturally pretty mild and meek kind of guy, but he's leaned all the way into the heel turn this year. I know he's a big wrestling fan, so he'll be loving that, right? He's seen that Kurt has kind of stepped back from the role of league villain, and he's like, I'll have that. And he's just playing it to perfection. I'm here for. I love what he's bringing.
It's good. He is a real keyboard warrior, because I think even in person, it just isn't there. It wasn't there on the video. I was hoping he was going to bring to the show. I brought him in, but it was just his usual humble self.
Yeah.
But on the keyboard in the chat where it's all common and everyone's on equal footing, he is all over it, and it's fantastic. He has I haven't gone and checked the stats. We need the AI bot for this, but I reckon he's probably had the most best comments in my best comment segment.
So yeah, like, obviously this is a scoring juggernaut. What he's got going against him is history, right? So the early season juggernaut has never won the championship. You can fucking fact check, because I
did fact check it last year when you told that that I wasn't going to win for that reason, and I didn't believe it. I went back and fact checked it, and you were correct.
Yeah. In fact, we have a bunch of recent history. We had Tyson 2 years ago. We had you last year. And Johnny Fantasy, I love what's going on for you this year, brother. You are not going to win the championship. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen. No team sustains this level of success. So bad luck, buddy.
I have to say he hasn't done much on team management, but he's still on it. He's not resting on his laurels of success.
No.
Most recently, he had DeAndre Hopkins. He was following the news that the trade had happened from the hapless Titans to having Patrick Mahomes throw him the ball, and he was onto that trade so quickly. I saw the news had dropped, and I went to grab him because I'm like, this could be good for my team. And he'd already been picked up. Like, he is keeping his finger on the pulse.
All right, well, that's it, mate. We have ranked and reviewed all 12 teams. Thank you for your input. Thanks to those of you who have joined live, and shout out to those who will watch later, with or without their significant others.
Father Tex is shocked that he's not number one.
G'day, Tex. Cool. Any closing remarks, Kingmaker?
Only with reference to the video that I wish I could remember it had dildos in it when my daughter was watching it. I had no recollection of that particular moment, and I'm sure I'm going to get the question about what a dildo is at some point. If you do with that, thank you for that. But equally, the fun fact about that is my AFL Dynasty League is called Hotel California. And I've never appreciated but the Total Domination Hotel California reference coming together sort of blew my mind a bit because I haven't watched that episode for a long time.
There you go. All right. Well,
thank you very much for your hard work and, for making a PowerPoint work. Normally I can do it, but it's a bit of a 50-50 at this rate. Love the content and look forward to chatting again in a couple of days' time and we see how you went against Stu. It's got to be a big matchup.
Got to be. All right, mates.
Well, thank you, and we will see you all soon.